Kindling of emotions. The next few weeks fell into a pattern of cautious friendship. Ryuu kept shining on the field, scoring and assisting in vital matches. Lucas's rehab advanced, though slower than he would have liked, leaving him moody and restless. Nonetheless, Ryuu's visits and the mutual analysis sessions had become a fixture. On a particularly stormy night, lightning crackled outside Lucas's windows. Ryuu, who had stayed later than usual, watched the downpour warily. "Guess I'm stuck here till it eases up," he said. Lucas's eyes flicked to the digital clock, past 1 a.m. "You could crash here. The couch is comfortable." Ryuu gave a half smile. "Thanks. That might be best." They tidied up the living room, putting away the scattered notes and video equipment. Ryuu grabbed a spare blanket from a closet as Lucas settled on a recliner, carefully propping up his foot. "So?" Ryuu ventured, voice hushed by the lull of rain. "What's the doctor saying about your ankle?" Lucas sighed. "Maybe another couple of weeks before I can start light training. Then I'll have to earn my place back." "You'll get it back," Ryuu said with calm confidence. Their gazes held. In the dim living room light, the tension between them felt more intimate than ever, a subtle awareness that the lines of rivalry were all but dissolved. Something in Lucas churned, building from the pit of his stomach. He swallowed the inexplicable urge to close the small space between them. Instead, he forced a half-joking tone. "You're not a bad caretaker." Ryuu laughed softly, ruffling his own spiky hair. "You're not the easiest patient, but I guess it's nice to feel needed." Lucas let that sink in, an odd warmth coiling in his chest. "You are," he murmured, almost too quietly, eyes flicking away to avoid the naked vulnerability in that statement. A fragile truce. They both pretended to fall asleep soon after, but for Lucas, slumber came late. His mind was a storm of conflicting feelings, some of which he'd never let himself entertain. To even consider the possibility that his frustration, admiration, and that subtle desire to be near Ryuu could be something more was disorienting. Yet he couldn't deny the magnetism between them now, whether he wanted to or not. When morning came, the rain had subsided. Ryuu woke up first, tidying the couch. Lucas roused to find him making coffee in the kitchen, rummaging for sugar. "I set your cup there," Ryuu said, pointing to the kitchen island. Lucas limped over, leaning on his crutch. He sipped the coffee and tasted a hint of sweetness. Ryuu had added just the right amount of sugar. "Thanks," Lucas said. Ryuu offered a lopsided grin, an emotion flickering in his eyes. "No problem." They stood close, the air between them crackling with possibility. Lucas's pulse kicked up a notch. He found himself noticing the shape of Ryuu's mouth, the quick rise and fall of his chest, the subtle shift as he stepped closer. The tension spiked, intense, unspoken, and undeniable. Just then, Lucas's phone buzzed. Coach Hassan calling. The moment fractured. Lucas cleared his throat, stepping back. Ryuu turned away, busying himself with a sports magazine on the counter. Glimpses of the future. Coach's voice crackled over the line. "Lucas, how's the ankle?" "Better," Lucas replied, forcing steadiness into his tone. "I can probably start light jogging soon." "Good, good. Listen, the board wants to confirm your presence at next weekend's big sponsor function, the official unveiling of our new kit. You think you'll be mobile enough?" Lucas glanced down at his ankle, then at Ryuu, who shot him a curious look. "I'll do my best," Lucas answered. The call ended. Lucas recounted the conversation to Ryuu, who nodded. "If you're walking a bit better by then, the fans will be happy to see you. They've been talking about you on social media a lot." "I hope so." Lucas frowned, raking a hand through his hair. "I hate feeling useless. I want to be out there playing." Ryuu set a steady hand on Lucas's shoulder. "You'll be back soon. The team's holding up, but we all know we're stronger with you." A spark of gratitude flickered in Lucas's eyes, joined by that persistent flutter of attraction he stubbornly denied. "Thanks," he murmured. The day wore on. Ryuu eventually left for training, leaving Lucas alone with his thoughts, a swirl of longing and determination fueling his desire to recover faster. Building tension, slowly. The next few days saw continuous progress. Lucas's physical therapist introduced more challenging exercises. Ryuu kept dropping by, offering moral support or an extra hand, despite how busy his own schedule was as the team's new forward star. Metro United continued to rack up points, though the commentators repeatedly mentioned how unstoppable they could be once Lucas returned. One evening, after a draining therapy session, Lucas found himself dozing on his couch when a soft knock sounded at his door. He opened it to find Ryuu in casual clothes, wearing that trademark grin. "Thought you might want some dinner," Ryuu said, holding up a bag of takeout. "Something different. My cooking's not always the only option." Lucas's lips twitched in a subdued smile. "Come in." They ended up in front of the TV, Chinese takeout containers spread across the coffee table. Ryuu cracked jokes about the show playing, a random sitcom with an over-the-top laugh track. Lucas found himself more amused by Ryuu's commentary than the show itself. After dinner, Ryuu's gaze drifted to Lucas's ankle. "So, can you walk without crutches yet?" Lucas grimaced. "A bit. It's not pretty, but I can manage a few steps." Ryuu's eyes lit up. "Show me!" Lucas raised a brow but complied, pushing off the couch carefully. He wobbled once, but steadied himself. Slowly, he moved around the living room. It wasn't perfect, but it was real progress. "See?" he said, trying to mask the pride in his voice. Ryuu beamed, genuine excitement coloring his features. "That's awesome!" Lucas felt a warmth in his chest again. He realized, half in shock, how much Ryuu's opinion and encouragement mattered to him now. A fleeting touch. Growing bolder, Lucas decided to try a basic balancing exercise. He shifted his weight onto the injured foot, arms out, his brow furrowed in concentration, lips pressed tight to fight the tremor of pain. "Careful," Ryuu murmured, stepping closer. "Don't push it." Lucas wobbled. Ryuu's arm shot out, circling around Lucas's waist, preventing a fall. They froze in that position, Ryuu's hand pressed against Lucas's side, Lucas's chest rising and falling unsteadily. Time seemed to slow. Their faces were inches apart. Lucas could feel Ryuu's breath, warm and quick, brush across his cheek. The sudden closeness unleashed a tornado of sensations. Heart pounding, breath hitching, Lucas found his gaze traveling to Ryuu's lips. Heat rushed through his body. A flush crept along Ryuu's cheeks, too, but neither moved away. For a heartbeat, Lucas almost leaned in, almost surrendered to the tension that had been building for so long. But fear and uncertainty slammed into him. The intangible barrier of confusion and unspoken desire loomed. Abruptly, Lucas pulled back, inhaling sharply. "Thanks," he muttered, refusing to meet Ryuu's eyes. Ryuu let his arm drop. "Yeah, sure," he whispered, stepping away, the moment fading like a dissipating dream. The rest of the evening was subdued. They pretended nothing happened, focusing on casual conversation about upcoming matches and Lucas's rehab. But the tension lingered, a promise of something that was both thrilling and terrifying. Lucas Piaretti found that injury rehab was often as much a mental struggle as it was physical. Weeks had passed since the traumatic tackle that sidelined him, and though his ankle's swelling had gone down, the dull ache remained a constant reminder that he wasn't yet back in the fray. Every morning he went through the same routine of gentle stretches, ice packs, and measured physical therapy exercises. But something else had shifted in his life. Ryu Nakamura. Over the course of late-night video analyses and shared meals, the brash new forward had slid unexpectedly under Lucas's skin. Their rivalry had evolved into a tentative alliance, and that alliance was tiptoeing around a precarious edge between friendship and something deeper. Something that had Lucas's heart thudding whenever Ryuu was near. Anxiety and eagerness. It was Wednesday morning, the day Lucas was scheduled for a comprehensive assessment with the team's medical staff. If all went well, he might be cleared for light-on-field drills. Anxiety nibbled at him as he navigated his car to the training facility, ankles still twinging whenever he flexed it too far. Tension tightened across his shoulders, a mixture of excitement to rejoin the team and fear of re-injury. He parked, grabbed his crutches from the passenger seat, and stepped out into the crisp air. The building loomed ahead, massive windows reflecting the early sun. A wave of nostalgia hit him. He'd spent countless mornings here, always the first to arrive, brimming with purpose. Now, he was the last to arrive, weighed down by his limited mobility. Inside, the hallway bustled with staffers and a few players who'd just finished an early workout. Some nodded or offered encouraging words. He made a beeline for the medical wing. There, the familiar face of Dr. Morales greeted him with a warm handshake. "Lucas, Doctor." Morales said gently, "Ready for your assessment?" "As I'll ever be," Lucas replied with grim determination, following her into the exam room. She ran through a series of tests, range of motion, pressure applications on his ankle, balancing, short walking stints without the crutches. Each test brought mild discomfort, but Lucas was able to manage more than he had a week ago. "By the end, Doctor," Morales was smiling. "You're healing well," she said. "I'll clear you for non-contact drills. No scrimmages yet, but you can start reintegrating on the field with basic jogging and passing." Relief crashed through Lucas. "Thank you," he managed, voice thick with pent-up emotion. Dr. Morales gave him a firm nod. "Go see Coach Hassan. Let him know the good news. We'll schedule your next check-in soon." Tentative steps back. Lucas hobbled toward the main training field, breath hitching with excitement. He might not be fully back, but just the prospect of lacing up and jogging with his teammates felt like a monumental victory. The practice session was already underway, players running drills under the assistant coach's watchful eyes. Ryuu stood in the center circle, controlling a pass with elegant flair, prompting a few younger teammates to break into applause. Typical. Even from a distance, Lucas noticed how comfortable Ryuu looked in Metro United's kit. Confident, swift, a magnet to the ball. Lucas's arrival drew stares, and the drills paused. Coach Hassan strode over. "Heard from Morales?" Lucas nodded, pride blossoming in his chest. "Cleared for non-contact." A small grin broke through Hassan's usually stern features. "That's great news. Welcome back, but don't push it. We'll start you light." "Understood." The coach eyed Ryuu across the field. "I'm sure your buddy will be glad to see you," he said in a carefully neutral tone. Lucas suppressed a flicker of heat that flushed his cheeks. "We'll see." A subtle reunion. Moments later, the assistant coach escorted Lucas to a smaller section of the field where he'd do short-distance jogging and practice passes with one of the fitness trainers. It wasn't exactly glamorous. He wasn't leaping into full scrimmage, but the simple act of feeling cleats dig into grass again was exhilarating. He started to jog, focusing on proper form, ignoring the slight stiffness in his ankle. After a few laps, sweat dotted his forehead. Muscles that hadn't been fully engaged in weeks twitched with the renewed strain. But it felt good, painful in that liberating way training always did. During a breather, a figure materialized by his side. Ryuu. He stood, hands resting on his hips, dark eyes shining with an emotion Lucas couldn't quite label. Relief? Admiration? Maybe concern? "Hey," Ryu said softly, voice barely cutting through the background noise of other drills. Lucas nodded, trying to keep his heartbeat steady. "Hey." They fell silent for a moment, the tension of unspoken feelings swirling around them. Then Ryu stepped closer, lowering his voice so no one else would overhear. "I'm glad you're back. Everyone's missed your presence." Lucas swallowed. He couldn't deny the warmth that rushed through him whenever Ryu spoke so earnestly. "I missed it here," he said. "Missed everything about the team." A soft smile tugged at the corners of Ryu's mouth. "Gonna train carefully, right? No heroics?" Lucas released a half laugh. "No heroics. At least for now." They exchanged a long look, an invisible current coursing between them. Finally, the assistant coach waved, calling Ryu back to a tactical drill. He gave Lucas a last lingering glance before jogging off, leaving Lucas feeling oddly buoyant. The weight of expectations. Over the next week, Lucas's progress was swift but measured. Each day, he gained more freedom of movement, incorporating controlled passing drills with teammates. The sports media began buzzing. Lucas Piaretti's comeback was near. Fans on social media clamored to see him join forces with Ryu, whose star continued to rise with every match. That hype carried pressure, though. The club needed them to be unstoppable together. Journalists teased headlines about the dynamic duo. Reporters tried to corner them for interviews about their chemistry. Lucas handled the onslaught with stoic professionalism. But behind closed doors, the complexity of his relationship with Ryu gnawed at him. Was it purely the synergy of two talented forwards, or was there something more personal stirring? Late one afternoon, after the team wrapped up a strategy session, Lucas lingered in the video analysis room to watch old footage of himself in top form, as a form of mental reinforcement. The large screen lit the dark space, playing replays of last season's best goals. When the door opened, he expected an assistant coach. Instead, it was Ryu again, slipping inside with the stealth of a cat. "Thought I'd find you here," Ryu said, quietly closing the door. Lucas's pulse kicked up. They were alone, with only the flicker of the screen to cast shadows across Ryu's face. "Just refreshing my memory," Lucas said, gesturing to the footage. "Need to remind myself what it's like to be fully fit." Ryu settled into a chair beside him, their shoulders nearly touching. "You'll be there soon." His voice was confident, supportive. "We need you." The words sank in. Lucas pressed pause on the screen. "You've been doing great, though. Saw your highlight reel from last match? Those step-overs were insane." Ryu's lips twitched into a grin. "We're winning, but it feels incomplete without you." He trailed off, biting his lower lip. Lucas's chest tightened. A part of him wanted to reach over to brush back the stray lock of hair falling over Ryu's brow, an urge that both thrilled and terrified him. Instead, he swallowed, focusing on the half-lit screen. The hush lasted too long, the tension too thick. Neither dared break it. Finally, Ryu exhaled. "We should probably get out of here before someone locks us in." Lucas managed a tight smile. "Yeah." Yet as they left, Lucas's mind buzzed with more confusion than ever. He liked the closeness, craved it. But how could he possibly figure this out when the weight of the entire team and all the fans expected them to be an unstoppable duo, not entangled in personal complications? The charity gala. Shortly thereafter, a club-wide event presented another chance for them to be thrust together. The annual Metro United Charity Gala. Every season, the club organized a black-tie dinner and auction, raising funds for community programs. This year, the front office was particularly eager to showcase Lucas and Ryu together, two star forwards representing the future of the team. The night of the gala, Lucas found himself slipping into a tailored navy suit. It was a jarring switch from his usual training gear, but he wore it with the same discipline he brought to the pitch. His ankle was stable enough to permit him to stand tall in dress shoes, though it still felt slightly tight. At the venue, a luxurious hotel ballroom, the clamor of guests swelled. Club sponsors, local dignitaries, and fans who'd bought exclusive tickets mingled over canapes and champagne. Soft music played in the background, glittering chandeliers casting warm light across the crowd. Lucas moved through the throng with polite nods. He spotted a few teammates in sleek suits, their hair styled to perfection. The PR manager led him around, introducing him to important donors. As soon as conversation allowed, Lucas scanned the room for a familiar figure. Then he saw Ryuu, and for a split second, his breath caught. Ryuu stood near a large decorative arch, wearing a slim-fitted black suit with a subtle sheen, crisp white shirt underneath. His normally wild hair was tamed into a neater style, though a few spikes still gave him that signature edge. Despite the formal attire, he radiated the same rebellious energy that had first drawn Lucas's ire, and now, something else entirely. Ryuu was chatting with a club board member, but his gaze flicked across the room, locking onto Lucas. A mutual recognition passed between them, subtle, almost electric. Ryuu offered a small nod, lips curving into a knowing half-smile. Excusing himself, Lucas navigated the crowd until he reached Ryuu's side. The board member greeted him warmly, praising their combined potential. Lucas responded politely, while Ryuu's presence so close made his heart hammer. When the board member drifted away, Lucas exhaled in relief. "You clean up well," he remarked, careful to keep his voice neutral. Ryuu tugged at his sleeve, playful embarrassment in his expression. "You too. Looks like we're the main attraction tonight." Lucas gestured to the stage at the front of the ballroom. "They'll probably want us to speak, or at least smile for pictures." "Ugh," Ryuu teased. "I'd rather run suicide drills." Despite himself, Lucas chuckled. "Careful. Coach might overhear and take you up on it." They stood there side by side, a bubble of calm amidst the swirl of formal chatter and clinking glasses. The tension felt more intense in these clothes, in this environment, as if the normal barriers of the locker room or pitch had fallen away. Lucas's eyes dipped to Ryuu's collar, noticing a faint glimpse of his collarbone. He forced his gaze up, cursing the slight flush threatening his cheeks. Forced intimacy. Soon, the PR manager bustled over, instructing them to line up for official photos with major donors. Lucas found himself ushered onto a small raised platform. Ryuu was pressed in next to him, the two of them flanked by sponsors. Cameras flashed. "Squeeze in!" someone called from behind a lens. Ryuu's shoulder brushed Lucas's, the warmth seeping through layers of fabric. Lucas tried to keep his expression professional, ignoring the electricity dancing along his nerve endings. He knew it was no big deal, just two teammates in a photo, but given everything swirling between them, each accidental touch felt magnified 100-fold. After the photos, they were herded toward a corner for brief interviews. Under the bright lights of a camera, a reporter asked them about Lucas's recovery and how it felt to watch Ryuu shine in his absence. Lucas answered first, voice measured. "Ryuu's done an excellent job leading the offense. I'm proud of what he's accomplished." He risked a glance at Ryuu. "I'm excited to get back on the field with him." Ryuu's cheeks faintly pinked, but he nodded with a confident smile. "Lucas is the backbone of our attack. I can't wait to link up again. Our synergy is going to be something else." The reporter beamed, evidently thrilled at such a neat storyline. After a few more questions, they wrapped up, leaving Lucas and Ryuu off to the side, momentarily alone again. "That synergy talk," Lucas muttered. "Everyone's obsessed with it." Ryuu nodded, something vulnerable flickering across his face. "A lot of eyes on us, huh?" Lucas exhaled. "Yeah." They shared a look, one that spoke more than words, acknowledging the unspoken burden they both carried. Then, the gala's host announced that dinner would be served, and the crowd began drifting toward set tables arranged across the ballroom. Dinner and revelations. Lucas and Ryuu found themselves seated at the same table, alongside a few VIPs and a couple of teammates. Small talk buzzed around them: business, football, philanthropy. Lucas tried to focus, responding politely when addressed, but his attention kept straying to the subtle changes in Ryuu's expression. At some point, the conversation turned more personal. A board member asked Lucas, "Where did you grow up exactly? I know you've been with Metro for years, but I realized I don't know much about your youth." Lucas stiffened slightly, hating to delve into personal history. "I grew up in a small coastal town. My father was a fisherman. I started playing soccer at a local youth club. Caught the eye of a scout." He summarized it neatly, leaving out the painful memories of a father who demanded relentless perfection. Another guest turned to Ryuu. "What about you, Nakamura? We heard you were a top prospect in Japan." Ryuu shifted, swirling his water glass. "I come from Osaka. My parents, well, they worked a lot, and I spent my free time playing on the streets. I got noticed when I was 16, joined an academy. Then Metro scouted me recently." His words were calm, but Lucas caught the flicker in Ryuu's eyes, as if there was more to the story than he was revealing. "Well, the two of you have an incredible gift," the board member declared. "Your synergy on the field is the future of this club." They nodded politely, exchanging a small, charged glance. The synergy remark was starting to feel loaded with all sorts of subtext. Dance of hesitation. After dinner, a small dance floor opened up. Soft music played, couples in formal attire drifting onto it in pairs. Lucas wasn't usually one for dancing, especially with his ankle not fully recovered, but it was a social event. Some of the players teased each other into dancing. Lucas was content to sit back, massaging his ankle beneath the table. Ryuu approached, hands in his pockets. "Feel like dancing?" he asked with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Lucas let out a bark of a laugh. "Me, dancing? Hard pass." "Oh?" Ryuu teased. "Afraid you'll step on my feet?" Lucas snorted, though his cheeks warmed. "I'm not keen on being the center of attention when I'm hobbling around." Ryuu's gaze softened, flicking down to Lucas's ankle. "Yeah, right. Sorry, forgot. You're still healing." He paused, then leaned in, voice dropping so no one else could hear. "For what it's worth, I'd dance with you, even if it meant risking a broken toe." Heat bloomed in Lucas's chest. He forced a playful scoff. "Idiot. We'd look ridiculous, both of us scowling and sweaty after 5 seconds." Ryuu shrugged, lips curving. "Could be fun." They held each other's gaze for a moment that felt infinite, the swirl of people on the dance floor fading to the periphery. Lucas swallowed, pulse hammering. Then a group of club staff passed by, greeting them, and the moment was broken. Ryuu clapped Lucas lightly on the shoulder, stepping away. Unraveling defenses. The gala ended on a successful note. Thousands raised for charity, applause for the heartfelt speeches, and an endless array of photos capturing the two star forwards. As Lucas drove home, the city lights glimmered across the windshield. He couldn't stop replaying the night's small intimacies, the gentle brush of Ryuu's shoulder, the way he'd said he would dance with him. It was maddening, how such tiny moments meant so much. That night he tossed and turned in bed, imagining fleeting visions of Ryuu's smile, the warmth in his eyes. The frustration welled. Was this just a phase? Was it going to complicate everything if he let it happen? And what exactly was it, anyway? A swirl of longing, confusion, curiosity? He exhaled sharply, flipping onto his other side, the city's faint glow outlining the furniture in his bedroom. There was no easy answer, only the slow burn that grew more insistent each time Ryuu was near. Back on the field, the return. The new league match day arrived, a home game against North Shore FC. The stadium thrummed with anticipation, seats packed, fans waving Metro United flags. For the first time since his injury, Lucas was named on the bench. It was a precaution, as he wasn't quite 100% ready for a full match. But even so, the excitement was palpable. The crowd roared upon seeing his name flash on the jumbo screen. Ryuu, of course, started. The opening minutes were intense. North Shore FC pressed aggressively. Ryuu tried to carve out openings, but was often double-teamed. The scoreboard remained 0-0 well into the second half, frustration creeping across Metro's side. By the 65th minute, the coach decided to put Lucas on. The stadium erupted as he jogged onto the pitch, heart pounding. He was determined to keep it simple. Safe passes, cautious runs, not pushing the ankle too hard, but his adrenaline soared at the prospect of playing again, especially with Ryuu. Ryuu's eyes lit up when Lucas took his position up front. Their exchange was brief, just a nod, a look that said, "We got this." The synergy everyone talked about flickered to life. Almost immediately, the team's shape changed. Lucas forced defenders to track him, creating space for Ryuu. A brilliant pass from midfield found Ryuu's feet. Ryuu cut inside, slipped between two defenders, and for a split second, it looked like he'd shoot. Instead, he flicked the ball across to Lucas, perfectly timed. Lucas sucked in a breath. The pass was so precise, he barely had to adjust. He hammered a low shot into the corner. The net rippled. The crowd exploded. He turned, arms raised, and Ryuu dashed in, eyes shining. Instinct took over. Lucas reached out, and Ryuu's arms wrapped around his shoulders in a celebratory hug. Adrenaline and something dangerously close to ecstasy surged through Lucas, the press of Ryuu's body igniting every nerve. Surrounded by thousands of cheering fans, that fleeting hug felt fiercely personal, as if they were the only two people in the stadium. Their teammates converged, jostling and slapping them on the back, effectively breaking the embrace. Lucas and Ryuu shared a grinning glance. We did it. Metro United held on to that 1-0 lead until the final whistle. The celebrations continued on the pitch, in the locker room, and in the press coverage that followed. Piaretti returns to partner with Nakamura, and it's magic, the headlines read. Confronting the spark. That night, high on victory, Lucas received a message from Ryuu. Got leftover dinner if you're hungry. Come over? He hesitated for only a moment. Yes, he thought, needing more of that connection. Ryuu's apartment was in a modern complex closer to the stadium. Lucas, still slightly sore, made his way up to the 5th floor. Ryuu answered the door in casual shorts and a loose t-shirt. Somehow, seeing him out of uniform felt more intimate than ever. Hey, Ryuu said softly. Welcome. Inside, the living space reflected Ryuu's personality, barely tamed chaos. Posters of famous soccer players hung on the walls, along with bold graffiti-style art. A soccer ball sat near the couch, and a pair of cleats rested on a shoe rack by the door. A faint aroma of miso soup wafted from the kitchen. You sure you're up for company? Lucas asked. You must be tired after the match. I am, but I wanted to see you. And besides, Ryuu's gaze traveled to Lucas's ankle. I need to make sure you're not overdoing it. Lucas let out a small chuckle. You're mothering me now? A faint blush dusted Ryuu's cheeks. If that's what it takes to keep you healthy. They shared a quiet laugh, heading to the kitchen area. Ryuu served 2 steaming bowls of soup, setting them on the small dining table. The overhead light cast a warm glow. For a few minutes, they ate in companionable silence, the day's triumph settling over them like a gentle blanket. Congrats on the goal, Ryuu murmured, stirring his soup. Feels good to link up again, yeah? Lucas nodded, heart pounding at the memory of that celebratory hug. We connected well, but... He paused, letting the word hang. He wanted to broach the tension that had been building. the sense that this was more than just a partnership on the field. Ryu's gaze flicked up, understanding in his eyes. Yeah, he echoed. There's a spark. Lucas's throat constricted. He set his spoon down, trying to keep his tone steady. I'm not imagining it, then. Ryuu shook his head, a faint, nervous laugh escaping. Number, it's definitely there. A hush fell between them, hearts thudding, pulses rising. Outside, the faint sounds of the city drifted through the window. Lucas stared at Ryuu, his uncertain smile, the brightness in his gaze, the tension in his lean frame. Lucas felt as if they stood on a razor's edge. One step forward could tip them into something unknown.